As dawn rose the following morning, the party awoke to meet in the tavern's ale room. One by one, our stalwart adventurers arrived, ready to start out on their journey. Everyone, apart from Helmut Halfhand, that is. Wait here, I will check his camp to see what is keeping the lazy orc. Here it was me thinking it would be Henrik with his hangover that would be late to arrive, proclaimed Melkor. Surprisingly, Henrik, though drinking more than the rest of the party combined the previous night, seemed surprisingly joyful. Upon leaving the tavern, Melkor found Helmut's tent camped right outside the side of the tavern in the clearing. The tent flap was open. "Helmut, get out here, you oaf! We have to set off because the town awakes!" Melkor bellowed as he entered the rather spacious tent. The only thing he found, though, was a single bedroll. Returning to the tavern, "He's gone," Melkor informed the group. "What do you mean, he's gone?" Bjorn said in a panic. "I mean the great oaf is bloody gone. His tent and bedroll are there, but there's nothing else. Now, does that make sense?" Melkor roared in the growing fury. "He never paid me!" Riv shouted as she ran from the tavern, heading outside to find the coinage she believed she was owed. The rest of the group swiftly followed, and once outside it became apparent that Helmut was nowhere to be seen. The group quickly checked the area for any clues to where Helmut may have got to. "Come here and look at this!" shouted Alegna. As the group approached, Dane was already scouring the ground at what Alegna had already seen. Drag marks heading out of the village to the east. "He's been taken, it would seem," informed Dane. "Plus, there is no blood, so there must not have been much of a struggle." Bending over and touching the ground, Bjorn said, "It appears another of my brethren has been taken from this vile place. I will not stand for it. I say we follow these marks and see where they lead. I cannot see any more harm come to those who I would see as a family." "I am with you, brother," proudly announced Henrik. Though Henrik was young in years and had a certain wit to his personality, he was still a brave fighter and cared deeply for his creed. And though not always willing to show his true emotions, this loss of a fellow barbarian had stung him. Just how he had been stung so many times during the barbarian wars at the losses of so many of his kindred. "I may be small and not a great fighter, but I cannot sit back and let the reason we have all come together just disappear without finding out why," said Helmine. "Plus, I never asked for my cut last night, and 10 gold pieces would go a long way to set myself on the road to my taverna." This brought a smile to everyone's lips. No more so than Riv. "I agree," Riv chimed in. "So, what shall we do?" The sun had only just risen over the town of No Name. Not even the local bakers and farmers were about yet, but our adventurers were eager to set out as soon as possible, for time was of the utmost importance. "I will quickly go speak with the town guards on the edge of the town, see what they can tell us of these missing barbarians before we set out," said Henrik. "I will be back soon." "I will join him," announced Melkor. "We need to be quick so we get out of town before the locals start to wake. Plus, as a former soldier, same as Henrik, we might be able to convince the guards to free up some information." So off Melkor trotted after Henrik. "Wait for me!" shouted Hallamine. "You never know when a wizard is needed." As the 3 party members headed off to the south, a mere 2 minutes walk away, the rest of the party set about searching the area for any more clues as to what may have happened. It only took a few moments until Henrik, Melkor and Hallamine arrived at the guard camp. If you can tell, it is a camp, that is. It was a wooden hut that sat just outside of the town's southern gate. Sat outside the hut sat 2 guards, both wore little armour. Appeared to have not shaven or bathed in a month, and looked half asleep as they rested against the spears they had planted in the ground. As the party of 3 approached, both guards got to their feet and pointed their spears toward the party. "Halt, you 3! Don't come any closer! What do you want?" asked guard 1. "We don't have all day," said Henrik. "We are trying to find out what has been happening to all the barbarians in these parts of the world. They are going missing, including an acquaintance of ours. Can you tell us what you know?" "Be on your way," announced Guard 2. "We have no time for the likes of you around here. Look, we don't want any trouble. We are heading out of town shortly, and any help would be greatly appreciated," said Melkor. "As a former soldier, I would appreciate it if you would be so kind as to provide us with any information you may have." "As we said, we have no information that we can tell you." "Be on your way," retorted Guard 1. Stepping forward now in a fluster, Henrik started to grow in anger. "Look here, all we want is some information. Give us what we ask for and we will be on our way," Henrik roared as he stepped closer to the guards. At this, both guards raised their spears and pointed them straight at Henrik. He grabbed one of the spears and shoved it away, shouting, "Tell us what you know!" But it was too late. At this, Guard 2 thrust his spear at Henrik, not to wound but to force him back. "Piss off!" Henrik screamed as he swung a ball fist at the guard's head, only missing due to the quick reflexes of the guard. Despair on his face, Halloween knew a fight wasn't what was needed right now, and so he threw his tiny body onto the left leg of Henrik, wrapping both his arms around the barbarian's leg and shouting, "Henrik, stop! We came here for help, not for a fight!" It was at this point Melkor removed his head from his hands in despair and tried to pull back Henrik. Knowing that a fight here can only cause more trouble than the party needs right now, trying to calm the situation down, Melkor in his parade ground voice bellowed, "Enough now! For pity's sake, we are here to talk!" This seemed to do the trick, and the first guard started to lower his spear and back away. But unfortunately for Melkor, Henrik paid no attention to this, and as the closest guard to himself started to back away, his right fist collided with the guard's face, breaking his nose and splattering both himself and the second guard with blood. Laughing at the sight and knowing Halloween was still clinging to his leg, Henrik had the famous idea to swing his leg back and launch Halloween into the second guard. A great idea in theory, at least in his head, but as he swung his leg back and started to release, in fear of what was about to happen, Halloween's grip slipped, falling to the ground just as Henrik's leg swung forward, kicking him square in the face instead. Oh, and sending him flying into the guard. It was at this point Melkor knew he had to assist before even more blood was to be spilt this morning, and he was not sure if it would be the guards or his party at this point. He withdrew his axe from his back and flipped it, so the axe pommel was facing the guard. Not wanting to kill, but only to subdue the two guardsmen, he jabbed the pommel towards the chest of the guard, knocking him backwards. As the guardsman fell backwards, he was caught by two more guards who had come from inside the hut after being woken. After stopping their comrade from falling over, they all moved into the action. The only thing on their minds was to kill these fools. Luckily, it was now that the rest of the party arrived. Not knowing what was happening and seeing blood flying and a scuffle underway, Bjorn withdrew his longsword and charged into the fight, screaming as he went. At the same time, both Dane Wolftail and Legna Regra notched arrows to their bows and took aim. Not wanting to get involved though, Riv decided to sit cross-legged with Cheese the mouse, who had jumped off Alegna's shoulders and watched the fight unravel. "Hee, we will watch from here, Cheese. What do you think will win?" she said. It was now or nothing. One of the guards swung their spear straight at Henrik, catching him in the side and cutting a deep gash across him. This sent him into a blind rage. At the top of his voice he shouted, "Die, you bastards!" He ran a few feet to Melkor and, using him as leverage, jumped over his head, landing in front of the two guards at the back. As he landed, to withdraw his axe, and in one sweep swung it in a massive arc, catching the guard to his left straight across his left shoulder. The guard dropped away with near fatal wound. At this he turned to face the other guard at the back. It was at this time Bjorn had reached the fight, and with two hands swung his blade towards the nearest guard, and in one sweep he decapitated the guard, sending his head flying, the body crumpling to the ground. Dane, not wanting any more blood to be shed, again tried to shout and stop the fight, but there had been too much blood spilt and no one wanted to listen. Alegna, now knowing what must be done, loosed her first arrow. Its aim was true and hit the guard fighting Melkor between the shoulder blades, dropping the guard to the ground. Knowing what he must do, Dane released his arrow as well, aiming to wound though and not kill. Aimed at the guard nearest to Henrik, his arrow looked to be on target, but in a rage Henrik was not aware of what was going on and moved in front of the arrow, taking it to its left butt cheek. Dane winced as he saw it hit Henrik, but all he could hear was laughter coming from Halloween, who was only now coming back to his senses. "That serves you right for kicking me in the face, you idiots!" Knowing the fight was coming to its conclusion, both Melkor and Dane tried to stop the guards from continuing the fight. As 2 lay dead and 1 being injured, they knew they must continue to fight even though it was 6 on 2. Not willing to throw down their weapons, Bjorn swung his sword once again at the wounded guard. Coming from a downwards blow, he split the guard from shoulder to waist. The guard fell lifeless to the ground. By now, Henrik was too busy trying to pull the arrow out, and both Melkor and Dane were pleading with the final guard to drop his spear. Halloween had moved out of the fight and sat with Riv and Cheese to see how this would end, but end it did, and swift. Not wanting any more of the party to be injured, Elegna released a final yet deadly arrow at the final guardsman, hitting him square in the heart. He dropped to his knees, blood frothing at his lips as the world went black around him. "Well, that didn't go to plan, did it?" retorted Melkor. "What the hell happened?" asked Bjorn. "I got shot in the ass. That's what happened." "Who the hell shot me?" demanded Henrik. "Sorry about that," Dane responded. "I was aiming for your head, but the backside somehow got in the way." And with that, the tension forming within the group soon eased, as the group fell to laughter. What could have been a disaster had been averted by the quick words of Dane. "Right, what are we going to do with the bodies?" asked Halloween. "I know we didn't intend for this to happen, and I don't think anyone else saw us heading this way. But still, 4 dead guards that are found shortly after we'll be leaving town can only look suspicious." "While you all think of that, I'll help myself to whatever they are carrying," quipped in Riv. "Hee hee, me too," chimed in Elegna, as she picked up Cheese and skipped over to the 2 bodies. No one else within the party joined in with the looting, feeling uncomfortable taking anything from the deceased who had only fallen through a miscommunication. "I have an idea," jumped in Henrik quickly, or as quickly as he could with an arrow still in his ass. "Everyone knows barbarians are going missing. Why don't we put a sign around 2 of the guards saying we are barbarians, and a sign around the other 2 guards next saying we are not barbarians? Then we can put them in a precarious position and make out like it was a sex game gone wrong." The entire group just stood staring blankly at Henrik. Before long, Bjorn started to laugh, followed by Melkor, then Halloween. Before long, the entire group was laughing hysterically at the idea in which Henrik had come up with. Yet, without a better idea, the time being of the essence, that was exactly what the group did. As Elegna removed the arrow from Henrik and cast a healing word to recover his wounds, Halloween used prestidigitation upon the group to remove any signs of blood before entering the town, while Dane, Bjorn and Melkor stripped what was left off the guards' clothes, added a sign to each before placing them in questionable positions, all while little Miss Riv sat with Cheese counting the coins she took from the fallen, all while thinking of cunning ways of sneaking Cheese away from Elegna to call her own. "That has to be one of the most disturbing things I've ever done," retorted Bjorn as the group swiftly walked back into the village. "But alas, I need a name, for this is the first life this new blade has taken, and any sword needs a name." The group quipped at several different names before Elegna said, "What about Lawkiller?" The rest of the party nodded in agreement, for it seemed to be a very apt name for what had happened. "Yes, I will call her Lawkiller," replied Bjorn. "May Lawkiller kill my foes swiftly and justly in search for our brethren." With that, the group was back in the village of No Name, and it was time to set off. "Right," said Dane. "The markings lead off this way to the east, and I suggest we leave this village before the locals start to wake up and find 4 dead guards." With that, the group picked up their belongings, heading out of the eastern gate. The 3 barbarians leading the way, seeing it fitting that they are the first to head out to find their fallen brethren. Swiftly followed by Dane and then Halloween, with Riv and Elegna bringing up the rear, arguing over who it was that really owned Cheese. And this swiftly brings to the end episode 2 of our adventures. This was our first session actually ended. Talk about derailing the DM before we even got out of the village. I mean, the poor DM. You should have seen the look on his face when we decided what was going to happen. So guys, if you want to see more of this series, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in episode 3, Death Upon the Road. Take care.